Tonight's stream is a spontaneous, spur-of-the-moment stream based on a radio show that I heard earlier today on BBC Radio 2 here in the UK. If you're listening internationally, if you're watching internationally, they had a debate about whether we should continue to use the word boffin. Okay. Boffin in relation to someone smart who works geekily on stuff, I suppose. But at first, I'll admit, my first gut reaction was, oh my gosh, are we seriously doing this? It's like there's so much going on in the world. I'm an overthinker. If I think someone else is overthinking, overanalyzing, then they must be really overthinking it, right? Then they had a representative from the Institute of Physics, and I thought, I'm a member of the Institute of Physics. Second gut reaction, am I going to have to leave the Institute of Physics for this ridiculous nonsense? Right, so, Institute of Physics person says, look, here's some research. People in schools are being put off by the term boffin. We want to get more people into science, raise lots of valid points. And it's like, okay, I see what you're saying. So basically, the person from the Institute of Physics was saying, I think almost with an intonation of, this was never meant to be an argument or a debate or be blown out of all proportion. All we're doing is asking the media, particularly newspapers, to stop using the term boffin in headlines. And when you listen to it and you think about it, you think, actually, yeah, no, that's fair. Because really it helps, does it not? Because when you use the term boffin, even if you're using it affectionately, it's still a little bit of an affectionate sort of dig, an affectionate put down, mate. Well, it's not really. Well, it can be condescending. It depends how you. It's like the term geek, right? The term geek can be something that is, an endearing term, a term that you're proud of, but it can also be used condescendingly. It's just like, oh, do you know Jamie? It's a bit of a geek. It might be affectionate, but it's got a sort of, not so nice side to it as well. So I can get that aspect of it. But also, if you even forget about that, as I've mulled on it throughout the day, forget about that. The term boffin in a headline to describe serious scientific research sounds a bit naff. Ultimately, I mean that's not the reason behind all the research. The fact that people are being put off science, the fact that there's really good data behind all of this that the Institute of Physics put together. Actually, yeah, it's a bit naff, and we shouldn't be. So really, all this person was calling for was, let's get away from Boffin's take brilliant image of the universe and say dedicated multidisciplinary team of researchers. Yeah, let's say it like it is the call, really. And as the person from the Institute of Physics was saying on the radio as well, he was saying, we know this is not the most serious front to fight on, if you like, but it's a very simple change that the media could make. A very, very, very simple change that could have a really big positive effect. So once you start framing it like that, once you start thinking of it like that, it's like, actually, do you know what? I'll admit, I started off thinking this was utterly ridiculous, even as a physicist, even as someone who's passionate about getting people into STEM subjects, getting women into STEM subjects. That's where I was a bit worried, because it was like, hang on, the term boffin isn't sexist, but actually, I'm going to chat with Mum. No, she didn't come out and say, yes, it is, no, but she was doing her own research earlier today. And it's like, actually, yeah, historically, boffin was used to refer to only men. So, I wouldn't say anyone actually calling someone a boffin is sexist. However, in the middle of this radio show debate, in the interest of balance, the formula for balance as used by media outlets seems to be a very simple linear extrapolation formula, if you like. They will say, right, who can we have on to do this debate that's the polar opposite of who we've got? So, kind of good cop, bad cop, almost. So they had this representative from the Institute of Physics. To counter that, they had a journalist from the Daily Star. I mean, yeah, so it's, of course, around the world, the Daily Star, where you're from, might be a perfectly reputable newspaper. Here, it is a newspaper. Sorry, clarify. Right. Yes, there might be serious news articles somewhere in there, but there's also a lot of serious news stories treated in a decidedly light-hearted way, and then in the middle of it, there'll be someone posing cheesily, not wearing very much, maybe, I don't know. So it's kind of, yeah, it's technically a tabloid, says Cat Kid. So, yeah, I mean, what I mean is, if you know the Daily Star at all, maybe you would have known what to expect from this radio interview. And so you've got this person from the Institute of Physics just putting it across how it is, saying, look, we've done research, this is what we found, it's a simple change we can make that'll help the situation. We're not necessarily banning the term boffin, we're just asking people not to be so naff in headlines. It's not an exact quote, that's my spin on it, right? Guy from the Daily Star comes in, or it doesn't start off well, actually, because anybody who starts off in a debate with, you seem like an intelligent person, you must be an intelligent person coming from the Institute of Physicists. It's the Institute of Physics. So it's like, yeah, don't start down that line. That never ends well. I mean, this guy was hilarious, but I'm like, I know I'm not going to like what you have to say if you started off like that. Says, why not get back to doing important work? Forget this twaddle. Why not get back to important work like curing cancer? And I'm like, well, straight away, first of all, whoa, where did you go with that? I didn't believe you were going to go there. Secondly, physicists don't cure cancer. Hear me out. Only a physicist would like undermine themselves and say, oh, no, don't give us that accolade. No, okay, humble, modest, truthful. Right, physics has led to incredible treatments for cancer. It's going to lead to even more incredible treatments for cancer. Physicists can, in some cases, given the right conditions, with the right cancer and the right treatment, pretty much eradicate it, but physicists cannot cure it. Okay, this is important scientifically, so I don't know where this came from. It's like, oh, get back to curing cancer. It's like, let's leave the virologists and biologists and the people who study cell biology, let's let them do that, maybe, because they've got a lot better chance. Until such point as, I do like Star Trek, until such point as physicists invent the transporter, then you could say, yeah, if physicists start beaming out cancer cells, fantastic, we should definitely do that, if at all possible. I think the transporter is a long shot, and several centuries away, if possible at all. Unfortunately as it may be, because I do like Star Trek, but the point being, yes, that would be physics curing cancer, you could argue, because it just identifies it and beams it out of the body. Although even then, it's a bit of a stretch. It's not curing it, it's removing it, okay? Physicists can... I'm going off on a tangent, I know. Physicists can treat it, they can obliterate it, they can possibly irradiate it in ways that stop it growing. Yeah, we can treat it and manage it. Curing it means stopping it starting in the first place. And I don't know any physical process. Okay, careful how you use that term. I don't know any physics process that could actually stop that, short of, like, I don't know, using lasers to reprogram the DNA. Maybe in future. I don't know. Who knows? But again, physics is not the best tool for the DNA reprogramming. Biologists have already done this. DNA experts have already done this. We don't need physics to come up with a solution, as such. Anyway, Kaket's saying it's very informal, yes. So I would say the Sun and the Star are kind of informal tabloids, yeah. Immediately got my back up, says Kaket. Yeah, I bet, right? So that wasn't the worst thing. So they come out with this. They start off having a go at physics guy. Sorry. They start having a go at physics guy by saying, why not get back to doing something more important? And anyway, Boffin isn't sexist. And I'm like, well, I agree with you. Except historically it was. So you could argue it is. But anyway, Boffin isn't sexist anyway. All you have to do, wait for this. This is a quote, roughly. As in, I might have missed out a couple of words in the quote, but this is not from me. Do not clip this out of context. Daily Star guy says, all you have to do, there's women scientists as well. That's all we have to do is call them Boffinesses, and then everyone's included. That's why, hang on, you won't see this on TikTok. Give me a couple of seconds. A couple of minutes more like. That's why I don't normally post my face on Twitter. So this is very not me. But today, the range of expressions my face went through, I basically just had to try and replay them as I'd felt them, if you like. Just so that, because I could still feel them on my face, muscle memory. because the range of emotions. I mean, right, it starts off, the host did a brilliant job, by the way. Who was it? Somebody in for Jeremy Vine? Here we go. There she is. Tina DeHealy, who was in for Jeremy Vine today, did a brilliant job. But I'd say brave going into this just before the end of the show. And I need to listen back to the end of the show as well. So I caught the start. I need to listen back to the guests that were at the end. But I caught the debate, as I say, between the Institute of Physics person, who was Ray Mitchell, and Mike Parry, who they said journalist from Fleet Street at first, but later on I think they said from the Daily Star. So anyway, I posted this. So it's like a small selection of my facial expressions on hearing this debate as it unfolded. Thank goodness I wasn't driving. You know, I think this Mike Parry, I'm gonna say that I'm not comparing him exactly with Jeremy Clarkson, but in the same way as Jeremy Clarkson is probably actually a nice person behind the scenes when he wants to be. There's a reason why his friendship with Clarkson, Hammond and May, there's a reason why that's so tight-knit and has lasted so long. I get the distinct impression that a lot of what Jeremy Clarkson does, he knows exactly what he's doing. He's saying stuff for controversy. He knows it's going to cause controversy. I believe him sincerely that he doesn't care, in some sense. But then, when you're in the media, not caring has a different meaning. It's like, it doesn't mean I don't care because I'm a bad human being. I'm not saying he's never been a bad human being. I'm just saying it doesn't mean the same thing. It's I don't care because this is going to get views. Very similar to, I mean, I'm not saying it's a good road to go down. It's the road that a lot of Twitch streamers, unfortunately, and other content creators go down as well. I don't care if this is going to come back on me badly because it's going to get the views. It's going to get the thousands of views. It's going to get millions of views. So I'm not saying it's universally a good thing. I'm just saying it doesn't mean he's necessarily a bad person. I'm trying to cover myself here because I'm talking right now about this Mike Parry, who I don't know at all, and I don't want to, I don't want to slam as a person. I don't know him as a person. I just got that distinct impression he knows exactly what he's doing, especially coming out with call them Boffinesses. I mean, he knows that's just farcical. It is funny because it's so ridiculous. Yeah, it's not even insulting. Oh, right, sorry, it is insulting. It's not offensive. Maybe it is offensive. What I'm trying to say is, I'm like 0.1% offended by what he said, and 99.9% just laughing at how ridiculous it was because it wasn't even that clever. It was just said for shock value to and it's like, if you can see it coming, that's being done for shock value. I'm not saying it affects everyone the same. I'm talking from my own personal experience here. Not a woman, not trying to speak universally for all women. I just mean that when something's so daft, it's hard to get offended. I'm not saying don't be offended by sexism. I'm saying that he just said that, and it's like, come on. If you're going to do sexism, do better than that. I'm just saying I'm not necessarily asserting that he is a bad person outside of the artificial environment that he was put in to deliberately be an antagonist to the IOP guy. That's what I'm trying to say. Sometimes when people say things for shock value, they genuinely don't understand the effect it has, and afterwards they're really upset. It can destroy people. Like you see comedians and stuff, and it like some of them are, some comedians are just like, I said that to shock. I don't care. Those are my views. Take it or leave it. Stuff for you type of thing. But there are other comedians who are like, I honestly was just going along with this because I thought it was funny. Made the wrong call. I'm devastated. I really upset people. I'm actually genuinely hurt that other people are hurt, but I'm kind of ashamed or whatever. That's what I mean. There's two different types of people there. I don't know which type he is. I think some of the things he said could definitely come back to bite him, but I mean, yeah, I think that particular last expression in the bottom right hand corner there on my Twitter, on my tweet, was in response to when he said the Boffinesses thing. I was like, oh my god. Jeez. But yeah, to the serious point of this, I suppose, as well, is as a physicist, whilst I drop in the odd bit of science on my stream, I could be making more of an effort to do more science communication. Maybe that's the direction I need to go in future, I don't know. The good that can come from this is people talking about it. I'm a big fan of civil debate, and I think despite that Mike Parry's outlandish statements, it was still a civil debate for the most part. Apart from being condescending, but that's been covered earlier. So this is what the Institute of Physics have started, basically. So they projected onto the side of the Sun's building and onto the side of the Daily Star, presumably. Why don't we use the words that are accessible to people and will encourage them to see the opportunities that being a physicist, being a scientist will provide them in the future? That's all they're talking about. They're not talking about... It doesn't say ban the boffin. It says bin the boffin. Bin the use of the word in media. Cat Kit saying Boffinesses sounds like a team on Only Connect. It does, doesn't it? Bet you there will be one now. Look, I'll admit, at first I was like, I don't mind being called a boffin. I was going to say, shall I call my stream the Boffin stream? But then it's like, maybe that's flying in the face of what the IOP are trying to do. And if you actually, that's the point. If you're not reactionary about it, yeah, everybody has a gut reaction. It's human. I've been honest about my gut reaction. I thought it was ridiculous. My gut reaction was a Mike Parry gut reaction. Are we seriously going there? This is ridiculous. Can't believe this is happening. But then again, the way the world is going, maybe I can. And, well, I've heard it all now. And that's fine. That's human. But listen to what they're actually saying. A lot of people don't do this. Ironically, people who say do your own research are often the people who are unwilling to do their own research, isn't it? So, you know. We went to the heart of the UK media last night to ask the Daily Star and the Sun to bin the boffin. Read more here. So, okay. Let's follow the invite. But I want to see what Limitless is about first. Physics is for everyone. That makes sense. How to promote good physics on social media. Well, this is a guide for me then, is it? Free guide to help with inclusivity. Okay, right. Hold me to this then, Twitch. I'm taking a slight diversion here, but if I'm going to go into science communication, hold me to this. So how to promote good physics on social media, how to communicate physics clearly. Check your sources. So, I'm literally showing you the sources on stream. Sources, Institute of Physics. Check your sources, talk to a specialist. This is talking about general science communication now, though. Talk to a specialist or read material written by one. It's not too tough. Portraying physics as super difficult creates barriers to inclusivity. Didn't Einstein say if you can't explain a physics concept to a 5-year-old, then you don't understand it yourself? Something along those lines. That's not to say 5-year-olds can fully understand quantum physics, but it's saying you should be able to get across something about the thing conceptually to a 5-year-old and have them understand it. Will they be able to do finite element models of atomic wave functions? Probably not. But will they be able to understand, well, light's made of particles, but those particles sometimes behave as waves? You could probably get that across to a 5-year-old. So, yeah, is what I'd say. Cat Kit saying he did say that they did some research and the term boffin used in mainstream media is putting off a significant amount of young people from exploring the sciences, and also a lot of people don't know what it means. Using more inclusive language can only benefit everyone, says Cat Kit. Yes, that's, that is quite right. It amused me that some people thought it was a type of biscuit. Thought it was a posh coffee, I think he said. A posh type of coffee. Boffin. I'm drinking a cup of boffin right now. No jargon. Keep your language clear and simple. So yeah, it'd be very easy to make quantum mechanics sound really difficult by starting off with terminology. Obviously you need terminology eventually, but you don't pile on the terminology, just get the principles across. It's not magic. Give proper explanations for the physical phenomena you talk about. Okay. I need to print this out and put it up somewhere, don't I? Maybe I'll put it on the back wall of the virtual studio and keep it relevant. Make sure your explanations capture the real world. Alright, so Limitless is about changing the way media reports on physics and physicists. Right. Let's go back to this one. So, it's been a busy week with our IOP Limitless mission Bin the Boffin, but we're still keeping tabs on the number of times Boffin has been mentioned in the media. I hope they're not counting this stream, because I've added to the count significantly. This week it was used 13 times in headlines. Find out more about... No, I didn't know that, I'll be honest. So, this week's best worst example of Boffin in the media is Boffins to build 200,000-mile stairway to heaven so robots can ferry goods to the moon. Just so happens to be from the Daily Star. Boffin was used 40 times by the UK media this week. Have they put any more examples? There's an animation with a bin. Wendy Sadler, who I remember seeing him in a teaching thing, I think, during science demonstrations at a teachers' conference. I'm supporting this campaign because stereotypes matter and do affect the choices made by young people. Science should be inclusive and not elitist, and Boffin does nothing to help diversify STEM. So I think that's it. And it was, having a chat with Mum earlier. Mum was saying, at the very least, Boffin just is kind of irrelevant. It's like, you can approach this from many angles and reach the same answer, if you like. Oh, I see. That wasn't just camel case capitals in the hashtag. Camel case, by the way, is where, for accessibility, it happens in programming as well, but for accessibility, you are encouraged when you put a hashtag to put a capital letter to break up the words, so a capital letter at the start of each word. So when I saw limitless with a capital L, I didn't realise it's literally because limit less. It's very clever. So limit less. Limit yourselves less. Bin the Boffin. Help us to challenge cliched media stereotypes of scientists and encourage more young people from all backgrounds to change the world through physics. So, that Mike Parry's argument first off was, your typical image of a Boffin is Einstein. How can we be so disrespectful to Einstein? It's like, no one actually did. But yes, the first image that comes to mind is Einstein with the messy. And, my hair's messy often. I'm sure I've looked like the stereotypical Boffin at many times during my science career. So, and Boffin could be to do with software engineering as well, I suppose. So, yes, there is a stereotype. Yes, that stereotype is often male. So yeah, there's lots of stereotypes, and there was a campaign called People Like Me, which I thought was really interesting. They were working with schools as well, and saying the biggest factor, obviously seeing predominantly men in science, predominantly men in physics, doesn't help. But the overarching principle is that it's not actually, from their angle, it's not necessarily the fact that it's men, it's the fact that children growing up and school pupils growing up overridingly don't see people like them, so they don't see representation. And I thought it was an interesting sort of nuanced way of and they'd done a load of research back in this up as well. So, anyway, I did my own anecdotal research. When I was teaching, I started in my lessons doing quotes from scientists, and they were just relevant quotes from scientists, I put an Einstein quote up, I put a Stephen Hawking quote, who else? I put a couple of other male physicists, and I wasn't consciously putting up only male physicists, but I thought to myself, maybe we should have a bit more equality here. So I put a quote from Mae Jemison, who famously is the only person so far as, that I think anyway, might have changed now with the newer series, but she played a transporter chief in Star Trek: The Next Generation, but she was also on the space shuttle, so bona fide NASA astronauts. Lots of people have said she's the only person to work in space in real life and in fiction, different things, Anyway, I put up a quote from her, and I saw some pupils. It is important to note that they were female pupils. It is important to note that they were from a broad spectrum. I noticed in the corner of my eye that whilst other people had been copying quotes down lesson after lesson, they hadn't been until I put up a quote from Mae Jemison. Now, it could have been the content of the quote was just particularly relevant for that lesson, for that day. It struck a chord, it resonated. But I don't know, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's just that, like that People Like Me campaign, I think it's like, suddenly they noticed that quote more. It had more weight to it. Their eyes landed on it and lingered for longer than they would have before. Because I don't think materially there was any huge... I can't remember, I'd have to look back on the files are there somewhere in my archive from years ago. It's been years since I've been doing teaching, but I don't think the quote materially was significantly better or worse than any of the other quotes. It was just a good quote. I got into the habit of only putting up good quotes. It was like, they're relevant, they're interesting. Potentially relevant to the lesson, but maybe not. Maybe they're just generically relevant to science. Nice thought for the day. But yeah, I think that's important. So I've got my own anecdotal evidence for the fact that it's important to see people like you in science. I mean, I've got my own anecdotal evidence from Twitch, right? Hear me out. Going off on a tangent again, I know. The point is, I never thought I'd be on Twitch. I never thought that there was any point in me being on Twitch. I didn't think it was going to be my thing. Hello TikTok, I haven't forgotten you. Streaming live on Twitch and TikTok at the same time. I just thought, yeah, well, I've done radio, but streaming's not me. It's not for people like me. Until I started watching people like me. I'm not getting sponsorship from this campaign. It made a difference to me as a straight white male, but it made a difference to me. Yeah, I'm just saying I've got personal experience of knowing the effect it can have to see just one person like you. You know, one person who's not being in-your-face energetic. I've had my moments, but, you know, their stream isn't all hype, rage quitting, jumping up and down when you get a brilliant run or get loads of XP or get something brilliant in your loot crate or manage a no damage run. No damage runs, there's nothing wrong with that. Lots of skill in that. I'm not criticising the thing itself. I'm just saying you don't have to be that. There are other ways to stream. There are other ways to be on stream. There are people like me on Twitch. It makes a difference. So if it can make a difference to me, you know, in this situation, obviously it makes a difference. So yeah. Oh, there we are. Oh, well. Right. I was talking about the People Like Me campaign. What's the quote? Slap bang in the middle of the screen. On the IOP page, I never saw anyone like myself speaking about physics on the news. Quote from an anonymous female physicist, right? That's the point. That's the whole point. It's not about women taking over. It's just about not having, like, tokenism once in a blue moon. If the world is 52% female, I don't know, that might have changed since there was a 52% club in the university. So that's why I've always got the number 52%. I'm sure it's wrong now. But if the world is 52% women, 48% men, granted that's obviously going to be wrong if you're counting in people who are non-binary and yes. I'm going back to the early noughties here. Things have evolved a bit since then. Can't keep saying, shh, we are taking over, but it's a secret. Okay, let's forget percentages. Whenever you have someone on the news, it shouldn't be a rarity to see a woman talking about physics or science. And it says here, talking about Boffin specifically, and 18 to 24-year-olds are nearly 80% more likely to view the term Boffin as an insult. Again, it depends on your intonation to some extent, but more likely to see the term as an insult than a compliment. You don't have intonation in a news headline, that's the point. Again, no one's banning the term Boffin, but a headline, particularly one that starts with the word Boffin. Yeah. 15% of 11 to 17-year-olds surveyed would be put off studying a subject further if they were to be called a Boffin because of their interest in it. So, okay, it says what you can do. Let's end on that. What you can do. Use Bin the Boffin on social media. Tick. Done that. I've done a whole stream on it. I don't feel bad now for jumping on the bin wagon. Bin wagon. Made that joke up earlier. No, I felt very much like I was jumping on a bandwagon of this, but I don't feel bad now. They kind of want people to. That's the whole point. Use Bin the Boffin on social media. What more social media can you get than a Twitch stream on 2 different social medias at the same time? Could you call Twitch a social media? I don't know, but anyway, I'm on TikTok as well. Highlighting any use of the word Boffin by reposting or commenting with the hashtags. There we are. I'll make that your mission as well. Tweeting the newspapers, Daily Star and The Sun, sharing your experience of Boffin and the stereotypes associated with it. I don't think I've had any bad experiences with the word, but I always knew I wanted to do physics, and there were a load of other factors that might have put me off that ended up not doing so, but somebody who wasn't so dead set on doing physics, yeah, as I say, might be a straw that breaks the camel's back. Adding a Bin the Boffin sticker to your profile. Well, I can do better. By next stream, I'll try and put it, because I always thought that this background here in the virtual studio, this big blank bit here. Now granted, when I do the picture-in-picture screen, which I haven't finished yet either, it's part of the 25% of the stream that's not working yet, that went here. So it's not always blank space, this. It's also not blank if I zoom in. Yeah, I was thinking that when it's not being covered up by the picture-in-picture scene, it could have posters on it. It could have different posters all the time. Best thing is, virtual blue tack never gets used up. It doesn't pull paint off the wall either. And if you're a journalist who knows somebody who is, use and share our media guide. There we are, male teacher. I was a male teacher. I can think of a few instances where girls who had clearly done their research pointed out that physics has a reputation for male chauvinism. Yeah. Oh, FAQs. Right. Shall we have a look at these before we finish? Why is the FAQs? FAQ in chat. Why is the IOP putting boffins in the bin? We definitely don't want to throw away our brilliant scientists, experts and researchers. Quite the opposite. We want them to get the credit they deserve for their work instead of being described by a confusing and stereotypical word such as boffin. There we go. Thank goodness for that. The research I didn't do as a former researcher proves that what I was saying was correct, even though I was just saying it off bat on my own steam. Other cliches are available. And we want young people to see that physics is not just for those who fit a narrow stereotype. Now, I know in some ways I am a stereotypical physicist, but I also play the violin. I'm also doing Twitch streaming. I'm also festival steward, occasionally stage manager. What else do I do? I've got artistic hobbies other than music. I was made fun of for playing music through school as well. I was more made fun of for playing music than I was for studying science, actually. So my experience is maybe not so typical. But anyway, well, maybe it is typical for people like me. Maybe it's not typical for other people. Anyway. Yeah, if young people from all backgrounds see themselves in the media's reporting of physicists, more of them will consider pursuing physics and enjoy the benefits this brings, both to themselves and society. So, there we are. They said it, look. So why is the IOP trying to get the word banned? That's not what we are doing. It's not it. Do your own research. This is not about censorship or demanding that politicians force the editors of the Daily Star and the Sun to scrap the word boffin. We are asking them politely to remove it voluntarily because it mocks and disrespects scientists, and it's a word that many of their readers simply don't understand. It's also very outdated and doesn't need to be used when there are so many better alternatives. Well, what should they use instead? They could use, I don't know, scientist. Or even the job title. Yeah. Instead of saying science boffin. Yeah, I suppose that's it. It's like, even a car mechanic. I was looking at a car today. That's another Nemeth news story. But even a car mechanic, I didn't think of that until just now. Even a car mechanic, we call a car mechanic. We don't call them a car boffin, do we? Oh, we got the gas boffin coming around to fix the cooker. Actually, the more I say this, the more ridiculous it sounds. Okay, if you plug your violin into the DI on the stage and then have a word with the music boffin, the stage tech, the tech, the person on the sound desk, even calling someone a sparky who's an electrician, at least that describes their job, right? Whereas science boffin, well, what area of science? They could use the simpler and much more understandable scientist, similarly describing someone as an astrophysicist or a medical physicist. Will give readers more information about the person. When asked what journalists should use instead of boffin, members of the IOP said, "My name." Scientist. Terms more specific to the particular activity, like plasma physicist, nuclear physicist, organic chemist, or whatever is appropriate. I mean, that has a twofold impact, because organic chemist, I remember when I first saw the term organic chemist and I wanted to know what made it organic. What made them organic? Are they somebody who particularly likes gardening? No. Organic meaning contains carbon. That's what organic really means. I mean, yes, it also then means plants and stuff and healthy eating potentially, but in a chemistry sense, organic means contains carbon, so carbon-based, like a life form. in some ways it's interchangeable, I suppose. But yeah, when I first heard the term, I was interested to find out more about it. If you see plasma physicist, you immediately go, I mean, I'm biased, you immediately surely go, plasma physicist? What's a plasma physicist do? So it has advantages, right? Binning the word boffin, if you just say boffin, gives you nothing to go on. If you say geneticist, ooh, that sounds juicy, because then you can be more generic in the rest of the headline thinking about it, right? If you think, oh, I'm saying Boffin because it's getting too technical, Boffin discovers new gene sequences. Well, if you said geneticist, you've said that they work with genes. They work with DNA. Kind of. We want to avoid being too specific with the terminology, but yeah. Geneticist discovers new sequence in the DNA of rats. I don't know, right? You've actually been less specific in some ways in the following terminology because you've said geneticists. You've outlined the role. Yeah, I don't know. So Bin the Boffin initiative is part of the Limitless campaign to support more young people from groups currently underrepresented. Groups currently underrepresented in the physics community to do physics from age 16. When most people would normally stop, of course, because, well, it's an option. In my school, it was an option up to 14. Well, you did science, you did just general science. Obviously you have biology, chemistry, physics lessons, but it's just called science up until year 9, until the age of 13, 14, and then you choose whether to go into single science, double science, or triple science. And it's only in triple science that you have distinct biology, chemistry, and physics qualifications. But yeah, at age 16 then school stops, and you have to go down to 3 or 4 A levels normally. You could do BTEC, you could do all sorts of different qualifications, NVQs and stuff, but baccalaureates, so yeah, this is not meant to be a prospectus, but usually your choices are then limited to 1, 2, 3, 4 subjects, 5 tops, although that'll melt your brain, at which point something has to fall by the wayside, and you might have been really interested in physics at an earlier age, and it's just like, nah, you don't do it. It'd be a shame, wouldn't it, if you're the next big thing in physics and you don't do physics? It'd be criminal. How do we know that the person in college now wouldn't invent the warp drive? Okay, you could argue that they're already working on warp theory and warp bubbles, and they've got warp field interferometer, and they think they've discovered a warp bubble. But what if genuinely, what if someone in school right now who's just been put off physics would have grown up to invent the warp drive within our lifetime? Before they discovered evidence of warp bubbles, I'd have said that's literally like 100, 200, 300 years away. But it's an exciting prospect. Okay, maybe we'll only propel like a little satellite, but imagine that. Imagine if we could. We want our starships, right? There's other problems to overcome. But imagine if we could launch a CubeSat at warp with an actual, genuine, bona fide warp drive within our lifetime. Even if that warp is only going at a fraction of the speed of light rather than exceeding the speed of light. Still, being able to travel at a sizable fraction of the speed of light is amazing. We could send a CubeSat to a planet and back. A planet in another solar system and back. And get the data, like, in the space of a Voyager mission. I'm not talking about Star Trek Voyager, I'm talking about actual Voyager, the probes that went out to look at all the planets. Took years to get there, took decades to get there. We could imagine a satellite that, like, took 5 years to get to our nearest solar system and back again, and took satellite images of planet. I mean, that just be, yeah. I don't know. I think it's still science fiction, sadly. But it's that little bit more possible. And look at how much we've got today, how much technology we've got today that was absolutely laughably impossible 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago.